David Carter had spent his life chasing success. As the CEO of Carter Industries, one of the most powerful tech companies in the country, he was known for his ruthless decision-making and relentless ambition. His name was on the covers of business magazines, his wealth made headlines, and his influence stretched across boardrooms worldwide. But none of that prepared him for the moment when he found himself standing in a small, unassuming restaurant, staring at a crying little girl, his daughter. A fateful encounter. That evening, David had planned to dine at an exclusive, members-only restaurant in Manhattan. However, a sudden urge led him to a quieter, more humble spot on the outskirts of the city. Maybe he needed a break from the suffocating world of wealth and power. He had just taken a seat and ordered a coffee when he noticed the little girl. She sat alone in a booth near the window, clutching a tattered stuffed rabbit, her small shoulders shaking as she sobbed quietly. It was unusual to see a child alone in a restaurant, and even more unusual to see one so deeply distressed. David tried to focus on his phone, but something inside him wouldn't let him ignore her pain. Finally, he stood up and walked over. "Hey there," he said gently, crouching beside her table. "Are you okay?" The girl wiped at her tear-streaked cheeks and looked up at him. Her deep brown eyes shimmered with sadness, but there was something eerily familiar about them. "My mom was supposed to meet me here," she whispered, "but she hasn't come yet. I think something happened." David felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. "What's your mom's name?" "Sophie." The moment he heard that name, his entire body stiffened. His heart pounded as memories from 10 years ago flooded back. Sophie Harper. He hadn't seen her in over a decade. Their relationship had been passionate but short-lived. She had told him she was pregnant before they broke up, but at the time, he hadn't believed he was ready for a child. His career had been his only priority, and he had walked away without looking back. Now, looking at this little girl, her brown eyes, the shape of her nose, the slight curl in her dark hair, he felt like the air had been sucked from his lungs. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Lily Harper." David's world tilted. The truth hits hard. For a moment, he couldn't speak. He just stared at her, his mind racing. Could it be true? Could she really be my daughter? Swallowing the lump in his throat, he forced himself to focus. First, he needed to make sure Sophie was okay. Pulling out his phone, he said, "Lily, let's try calling your mom." She nodded, still sniffling. David dialed the number. The call rang for what felt like an eternity before a weak, shaky voice answered. Hello. "Sophie, it's me. David." Silence. Then, a sharp intake of breath. "David?" Her voice was filled with shock. "How? Why?" "I'm with Lily," he interrupted. "She's at the restaurant. She was waiting for you, but you didn't come. What happened?" A small sob came from the other end. "I was in a car accident," she said weakly. "I'm in the hospital." David's stomach twisted in fear. "Which hospital?" She told him, and he didn't waste another second. A race against time. "Lily, your mom is okay, but she's in the hospital. Let's go see her." The little girl's face lit up with hope. "Really?" "Yes," he said, a strange but powerful protectiveness washing over him. "Come on, I'll take you." David's driver was waiting outside, and he scooped Lily into his arms, carrying her to the car. As they drove, she looked up at him. "You're really nice," she said softly. "You remind me of the dad I always imagined." His breath caught in his throat. He wanted to tell her the truth right then and there, but he didn't know if it was his place. Not yet. Reunion at the hospital. When they arrived at the hospital, Sophie was lying in a hospital bed, her arm in a sling and a few scratches on her face. The moment she saw Lily, relief flooded her expression. "Mommy!" Lily ran to her, hugging her tightly. Sophie kissed her forehead and looked up, right into David's eyes. A million emotions flickered across her face. Shock. Pain. Uncertainty. You found her? Sophie whispered. David swallowed hard. I had no idea she was mine, Sophie. You told me back then, but I didn't listen. I was a fool. Tears welled up in Sophie's eyes. I tried to tell you, David. I wrote to you. I called. Regret hit him like a freight train. He had been so blinded by his ambition that he had ignored everything else. I was wrong, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But I want to make it right. I want to be in her life. Sophie hesitated. She looked down at Lily, who was holding both their hands, as if she already knew the truth. She deserves to know her father, Sophie finally said. David exhaled shakily. She was giving him a chance. A new beginning. The next few weeks changed everything. David spent time with Lily every day, getting to know her, the way she loved books, how she laughed at the silliest jokes, the way she held on to that old stuffed rabbit even though she was getting too big for it. One evening, as he tucked her into bed, she looked up at him and asked, "Are you my daddy?" His heart nearly stopped. "Yes, sweetheart," he said, his voice filled with love. "I am." Lily smiled. "I always wanted a daddy." Tears burned in David's eyes as he kissed her forehead. "And I'll always be here for you." He had spent his life building an empire, but he had been blind to what truly mattered. Now, he had been given a second chance. And this time, he wouldn't let it go.